Good morning, everyone. The hour of 9:47 having arrived, I'd like to call the November 14, 2017 County Board meeting to order. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen? Present. Auger? Here. Barrero? Yes. Dahl? Here. Davist? Here. Fraz? Here. Gillum? Here. Hernandez? Here. Hoshite? Here. Ishmael? Here. Kenyon? Here. Kazarik? Here. Leonard? Here. Lewis? Here. Martin? Here. Molina? Sanchez? Here. Shefflo? Here. Silva? Here. Smith? Here. Starrett? Present. Thomas? Here. Wegman? Here. Winicki? Here. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the prayer. I'd like to ask Miss Illinois Teen 2017, Rachel Hodson, to come to the microphone and lead us in the pledge. Miss Hodson is a senior at Burlington Central High School. She will be competing for the National Miss Teen title in Anaheim, California during the week of Thanksgiving.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please remain standing, and we wish you all the luck. Ms. Hodson, good luck. Okay, for our prayer, I'd like to ask Pastor Josh Mattson of the First Christian Church in Aurora to come to the microphone and lead us in prayer. Please remain standing.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this call that you've given us today. We thank you for the ability to be able to meet in this building, Lord, the ability to be able to carry out the business of Kane County. Lord, we ask that as this meeting unfolds this morning, that you impart your wisdom on everyone in this room, Lord, and that every decision that is made is for the betterment of every individual in here, every individual in Kane County, and has a greater impact throughout the state of Illinois, Lord. We pray these things in the name of your Son. Amen.
Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from October 10th, 2017? So moved by Mr. Fraz, second by Mr. Ishmael. Are there any thoughts, comments, or changes? All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda, presentations, discussions. I'd like to defer today's Chairman Short program. We have a lot of important work ahead of us this morning, so we'll go straight to our guest speakers first. Speakers on agenda items. Just a note for background, as a matter of protocol, individuals who have registered to speak on an agenda item prior to 8:30 today are allowed 5 minutes to address the board. Total public comment time for items listed on the agenda are limited to 30 minutes. So naturally, speakers shall refrain from statements, remarks, or conduct that would otherwise be disruptive to the conduct of the county board or which causes a disturbance. So I believe that we have 3 speakers. And I'd like each to come to the podium and state and spell your name for the record. And the first on is Mike Lingle on petition 4430. I understand that Mr. Lingle is the regional director of the Indiana-Illinois-Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting. But doesn't look like that's Mr. Lingle.
No, my name is Jody Fraley, yes.
Okay, so next on our list is Jody Fraley, also on petition 4430, construction analyst for Indiana-Illinois-Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting. Ms. Fraley?
May I go ahead?
Yes, and is the 5 minutes, will that be sufficient?
Oh, I hope so, yes. Okay, good morning. My name is Jody Fraley. I'm a construction analyst with the Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting. We are a labor management organization comprised in part of construction industry employers. The goal of the FFC is to promote a level playing field for contractors, workers, as well as taxpayers. I am here today to oppose petition number 4430, in which petitioners request an extension of their interim special use permit in an F district. As outlined in correspondence to the county from the FFC Council dated September 14, 2017, it is the opinion of the FFC that the special use permit does not meet the requirements of the Kane County zoning ordinance and should be denied for several reasons. First, there is already an appropriate district to locate residential site work, as petitioners allege this use is for. That is a B4 district for storage of building materials, commercial yards, and building for the storage of equipment materials. Petitioner's use is therefore already properly classified in an existing district. Secondly, there are uses admittedly occurring on petitioner's property that are expressly prohibited uses by the Kane County zoning ordinance in an F district, including storing materials and/or equipment not in connection with an authorized building project, storage of unoccupied mobile homes and/or conversion of mobile homes to another use, storage or parking one or more trucks of commercial vehicles in excess of 3/4 tons of storage, or keeping commercial equipment supplies. Garages or other accessory buildings shall not be permitted except as an accessory to a residential use. These are all admittedly occurring and are expressly prohibited uses on the property zoned in the F district, not listed as permitted or special uses. Third, and also problematic, is the language petitioners used in their current petition to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The language is identical to the petitioner's former extension requested, dated October 1st, 2013, including citing the drastic downturn in the health of the economy at that time, and there being very little development. Yet, per petitioner's website, for the company located at the reference property, petitioner boasts of the company's expanded commercial work needed to support growing regional demands, with an ever-growing focus on commercial work. Apparently, the company is no longer being impacted by what was described as the drastic downturn in the health of the economy, as claimed on the original application. Notably, pursuant to Appendix B of the Kane County zoning ordinance, an interim special use in an F district may be granted for only a limited period of time, not to exceed 5 years. If granted, the interim special use petitioner seeks, the special use petitioner seeks will be granted for a total period of 10 years, which would have covered from 2008 to 2019. In clear violation of the ordinance, ironically, Mr. Frost voted in favor of that 5-year special use limitation at the Development Committee, the Executive Committee, and when it came in front of the County Board. Granting this position provides an unfair competitive advantage to the petitioner due to the fact that he does not have to follow zoning ordinance while other competing contractors do. Petitioner could have bought a property in a district appropriate for his uses, but instead he keeps renewing a special use permit because he has no real intention of complying with the Kane County zoning ordinance at all. Accordingly, pursuant to Section 4.1 of the Kane County zoning ordinance, the FFC requests that petition number 4430 be denied. If the county is inclined to grant the petition, the FFC requests that the time limitation of the special use be limited to a 2-year and that the exit plan begin immediately. That's what I've got. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fraley. Next on my list of speakers on agenda items is Attorney Patrick Bond on Resolution 17337 on Aurora Election Commission. You're going to make a presentation on that rather than answering questions that might come up in debate. Is that correct?
Correct. Obviously,
Good.
if there are any questions,
Good.
I won't be
Thank
leaving
you.
the room. I'll be available. So,
Mr. Bond?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board. My name is Patrick Bond. I'm the attorney for the Aurora Election Commission. Also in attendance this morning are the 2 of the commissioners, our chairman, Lee Anderson, and one of the commissioners, Lillian Perry. I'm here on 2 matters that are on the agenda. The first item is item 17-1 17-311, authorizing certain amendments to the 2018 draft budget. That's item C, the first item under 5C. And another matter which is on the consent agenda under your executive committee, and that's item 17-337, authorizing an amendment to the memorandum of understanding. If I may, I just address those, and I will be brief in turn. The first item has to do with the budget amendment. I'm here on behalf of the commissioners simply asking, there was a reduction in the salaries of the commissioners. There are 3 commissioners who serve the Aurora Election Commission. Their salaries pursuant to state statute are funded by the county board. And I understand the county, like all governmental entities, has its financial challenges. And we're just asking, there was a reduction of $1,090 to those salaries. We're asking that that be restored. The salaries for the 3 commissioners has not been changed or altered in the last decade at least, and it's unclear before that. But they've maintained that. The commissioners work tirelessly. There are only 3. The city of Aurora is the 2nd largest city in the state of Illinois, and the voters that they serve with distinction, and they put a lot of time and effort between the operations of the commission and overseeing and managing that budget. That's anywhere from 1.4 to 800,000 to 1.4 million. It's a huge responsibility. It takes a lot of time. These individuals do it for relatively low compensation. We just ask that you would consider restoring those to the previous level. Again, it hasn't been changed in 10 years. The $1,090, I don't know that that's going to necessarily fill any holes in the county budget, but it certainly does mean a lot to the Aurora Election Commission. The other item has to do with the memorandum of understanding. It's under the executive. That's 17-337. We have been working with your finance director, Joe Osnick. I do want to just express my appreciation for the professionalism and the timeliness of addressing this issue. Historically, Kane County has funded the the executive director and the assistant executive director positions. By statute, you are obligated to fund the executive director position for the Aurora Election Commission. So Mr. Osnick indicated, and again, in light of the budgetary restrictions, that was going to change where they would no longer be funding, the county would no longer be funding the assistant executive position. This puts us in a little bit of a situation because the Aurora Election Commission only has 2 full-time employees, the executive director, the assistant executive director. We were able to work out an amendment to an existing memorandum of understanding that deals with the funding issue, and that essentially allows the individual to remain so there's no break in insurance or anything else, and it would, the Aurora Election Commission will fully fund all expenses related to salary as well as benefits and health insurance and so forth. That's going to be funded in advance, so it's a cost neutral factor to the county. It will allow this individual to remain without any disruption in her insurance coverage, and will allow her to remain. And again, it does not have an impact on the budget in any regard. So we are grateful for your favorable consideration of both of those matters to allow the commission to continue to operate in the fashion that it has. And unless there's any questions, I appreciate the time this morning and appreciate your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Okay, are there any questions? Okay. If not, I'd like to go straight to the fiscal year 18, well, excuse me. Is Mr. Lingle in the audience? He had signed up to speak, but if not, we'll proceed. Before I go to the fiscal year 18 budget ordinances and resolutions, I'd like to thank Joe McMahon, our state's attorney, for being with us this morning. I'd also like to again express our encouragement and prayers for our county clerk.
He's mended, by the way.
Sorry?
He is mended, by the way, 100% recovery.
Celeste says that he is mending well, so that is good. On the budget ordinances and resolutions, I'd like to ask the Finance Committee Chairman, John Hoscheit, to make a motion to approve each of the tax levy resolutions and the 2018 budget ordinance individually, and then we'll take a roll call on each one of those. So, John?
First, Mr. Chairman, we have two preliminary resolutions. Resolution 17-311 authorizes certain final amendments to the 2018 draft budget to take into account some budget adjustments that were submitted by the State's Attorney's Office in relation to insurance liability. And then Resolution 17-312 is a commitment from the County Board to work with the elected officials and department heads through fiscal year 2018 to allow them to allocate resources among their various budgets so that they can live within the parameters of the 2018 budget. So I'll move both those together.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Sterrett. Are there any questions or comments? If not, oh, excuse me. Ms. Ferrero?
Thank you, Chairman.
Would you please rise and...
I would like to make two amendments to 17-311. The first amendment to 17-311, which is titled Authorizing Certain Amendments to the Draft of the 2018 Budget. First, I would like to add as the sixth whereas on the front of the resolution to read, whereas the Aurora Election Commission has requested that the salaries of their commissioners be restored to what they were in 2017. Also, along with that same amendment, I'd like to add the bottom, which would say, second to last paragraph would say, now therefore be it further resolved that the 2018 draft budget as approved by the County Board on October 10th, 2017 be amended to also include the following line item changes submitted by the Aurora Election Commission. And do you want me to go through each fund? They list the general fund, Aurora Election Commission salaries, or general fund contingency allowance for expense, FICA fund cash on hand, and FICA fund FICA expense. That's my first amendment. My second amendment to this resolution is I would like to add $673,000 to fund 430 court services and deduct that $673 from the property tax freeze protection fund. If we vote on the budget as it is currently, that will eliminate jobs as well as a public safety issue. So that's my motion.
Okay, could you restate your motion simply? First of all, have you placed that motion in writing for consideration of the board at any time?
Have I?
Yes.
No, I have not. Okay. We have talked about this in previous meetings.
Could you restate simply, so you're moving basically two actions on the budget. Could you simplify it for consideration, and then I'll ask for a second.
Okay, I make it a motion to amend the resolution by adding the language that was submitted by Joe Onzik yesterday to include the salaries of the other election commissioners of the 1,090. And then I also would like to add the 673 to 430 court services and deduct that 673,000 from the the property tax freeze protection fund.
Okay, so it's been moved by Ms. Barrero. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Mr. Davis. Any discussion? Ms. Thomas.
Can those amendments be separated?
Be separated? You mean for two different votes?
Two votes.
That would be up to the state's attorney. This is what I'm requesting.
So that would be a friendly amendment, and if you accept that proposal, you can separate them and then ask for a second on
the second issue?
You can ask for them separately. It would be a friendly amendment, but yes, you can accept it.
Okay.
Okay, so so you're making that motion to divide those two questions. Mr. Davis, do you amend your motion? Okay. So now those are two separate. So the first, any discussion on the first proposal that has to do with the Aurora Election Commission? Okay. The purpose behind that entry in 311 is to make all of the departments, agencies, responsibilities that the county board has for making allocations to be consistent across the board, and that was a consistency. So, any other conversation? If not, clerk, call the roll.
On the amendment. Allen. No. Okay. Auger? Yes. Barrero? Yes. Dahl? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Fraz? No. Gillum? No. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite?
No.
Ishmael?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarik?
No.
Leonard?
No.
Lewis?
No.
Martin?
No.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
No.
Silva?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Sterrett?
No.
And Thomas?
No.
Wegman?
No.
Wanicki?
No.
I've got 14 yes. I had 4, yeah. Yeah, the bank fails. 1, 2, 3.
The motion fails. Okay, the second question that was the motion made by Ms. Barrero, seconded by Mr. Davis, that is regarding the increase in the court services and a decrease to the property tax freeze reserve. That has a motion and a second discussion. Any thoughts? Mr. Fraz.
Over the last several meetings related to the budget, I supported the idea. I have two hopes. One was that the chief judge would come back with the court security fee increase, and the other was that we could find some additional funds like Bruce is proposing here. I know it's important that we move this budget forward. I'll be voting along this amendment, but I have been assured by those that are in the middle of negotiations that we can continue those.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fraz. Any other thoughts? Mr. Davis?
Over the years, I've often spoken about the danger of spending one-time money on operational expense. And while this may seem to deviate from that path, I think we have some special circumstances. This is not a program, the monitoring that can just be turned on and off easily without putting people and lives at risk. I would hope that we could even agree to have a caveat that went with this amendment that says that Mr. Martin perhaps would agree to having an agenda item in JPS every month to address how we make this sustainable before we get to the same point in the budget cycle next year, which we, of course, will arrive at that same point. But I feel strongly enough about the public safety standpoint of this, or issue of this, that it needs to be protected long enough to get that answer. There's been much talk about the court security fee. My understanding is that it has been raised, but it's the kind of fee that happens. It's put in place at the beginning of the process, but you don't get the money until everything is settled. That's sometimes measured in years. Projections, I believe, indicate that they think the money will continue to come in and improve, in an improved level. Once that gets to a point where it fully funds the court services, which is the special fund is designed for, court security, sorry, you can't then continue to use it for something else. I believe the shortfall right now is approximately $300,000. So when you become fully funded, you will in fact free up that amount of money from general fund to apply towards this. I believe they've also talked to the sheriff's office about working on a way to conduct this program more efficiently or less expensively. So efforts are already in place to make this more sustainable, and that discussion has to continue. But in the meantime, there's 102 people that are in this program, and for those of you that don't have access to a newspaper, or television, a computer, or an iPhone, I'll just tell you that bad things happen every day, and Kane County is not immune to that. I don't want us to be the ones that are on the news next because one of those people that were monitored does something that is horrendous. Now we're not talking about just dollars, but now we're talking about people's lives. So I will vote yes to support this financially until we get to that next budget cycle. And in the interim, I hope that we have discussion on how we make it sustainable.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Certainly, I'd like to make the comment that everyone on this board is naturally concerned with public safety, and what we're discussing here is not the public safety. It's how funding is done within the county structure, within the structure of putting together this budget. Mr. Lewis, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. This is a challenging vote for the board. I think from a common sense standpoint, it's hard to argue with the fact that electronic monitoring is a very good solution, provides reasonable assurances to our citizens that people are going to behave the way we want them to behave, let me put it that way. And the Chief Judge has brought this, I guess, to a point of decision-making to us, clearly stating that should we vote with this budget, the judicial system will have no alternative but to discontinue this program. That's not acceptable to me. That's not acceptable to me. And Teresa has identified an alternative to that. It may not be the best one, but it's an alternative. And I've identified, to some of you are aware that I've identified a second alternative in regards to building permit fees. Both of which, and that certainly is, I believe, an even better alternative because it's a long-term solution and good for perpetuity, if you will, should we decide to do that. But my point is that I'm not prepared to not support electronic monitoring. And from that vantage point, I will support Teresa's amendment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martin, would you rise?
As I listen to these thoughts, I don't want it forgotten that these conversations and negotiations have gone on for literally months, and where we sit today is not lacking for consideration, nor is it lacking with conversation with the Chief Judge, her desire relative to sources of funds for these monies. I'm beyond apprehensive to suggest that way beyond the 11th hour, this is the final vote, that we designate funds, that we begin to spend reserves, reserves that we have no present plan or ability to acknowledge how we're going to replenish. And, the decision that we had to make this year relative to cutting the budget was not an easy decision for anyone, and there's no way that we can cut the budget without there being impact to county services and what we do. I would agree with Mr. Davis that we need to persist in the effort of trying to come up with an affordable manner of reinstating this program. But that being said, what we also owe to our constituents is proper fiscal management, and to me that means that we don't, particularly without having given any thought beyond this morning's presentation, that we don't start hitting reserves and taking away what flexibility we might have next year when we are going to have not only this is an issue, but we will have next year's series of issues. that will all have to be addressed. So I will oppose this motion simply because I don't find it to be fiscally responsible, which is ultimately our task as we sit here.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Ms. Barrero?
Just real quick, I just would like to reiterate that we set this fund up for 2018. We worked on this in 2014 with the chairman's help, and he saw this coming and Joe saw this coming down the line. We set this up for contingency for issues that would occur in 2018. It's 2018, and we have to use those funds. That's what they were set up for. When I voted on it in 2014, I did not believe that we were going to have to keep using it every year going forward. It was set up for an emergency. This is a public safety emergency. This is being fiscally responsible. If you look at what possibly could happen if we don't take care of issues now, it's more costly to put someone in the jail. It's more costly to go through the court systems. It's more costly afterwards. And we all are aware of what could happen. So please, I urge all of you to really consider this and remember what you voted on in 2014. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burrow. Mr. Kozarek.
I just kind of bring us back a little bit to the overall discussion here. We asked every department head, we asked every county-wide elected official to look at their own budget and to say, where can we make cuts? We allocated 3.6% of every budget. This is the proposal that the chief judge came back and said, this is the one that I'm going to put forward, that I want you guys to consider. So this is the one that she said she's willing to give up. And then she wrote a letter, or there was a letter written from the court saying, we really don't want to do this, but this is the one we want. So what this really reminds me of is when a school district is out for referendum, and they say, if you don't pass that referendum, no band, no football, no arts. We're going to cut those, trying to make it the most difficult one possible. Now, the internal control statute that we talk about all the time here in this room states that we don't have the authority to tell a department, a county-wide, any of these elected officials how to run their actual office. And what we're doing right now is we're telling them that we want the chief judge to reconsider and put that program back in, and we're going to give funding to be able to do that. So, in my opinion, we're kind of stepping on the internal control statute here, because we're saying we know better than the chief judge who put forward this program for our consideration to cut. Now, to Ms. Barrero's comment, in 2014, we did establish this fund, and we've been funding it for all future programs, for future needs, not just for 2018. Any of us in this room that think that this is going to be the last time we have a budget problem, I think we're sorely fooling ourselves. I mean, that's a lie to our constituents. We're going to have problems coming up year after year after year, and we have to continue to look at them and see what we can do to tackle these without raising taxes, without putting additional burdens on our residents. And the last comment, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Lewis's comment about the permits. Permits mean something to me because it comes out of my department with county development. I have no problem with this, and we're looking at the possibility of increasing our building permits. But it would make more sense to me to keep that money towards shoring up some of the other funds in development that might be reliant on riverboat funds or enterprise funds or things that are slowly going away as well. I really don't like the idea of raising them to save another program when we have other means at hand. So those are just my thoughts. I'm going to be voting in opposition to this. I think it does not make good fiscal sense.
Okay, and just for the record, I would like to correct the assertion that's been put forward by Ms. Barrero that was the reserves that have been set up for both emergencies and for the property tax levy freeze were not for the specific year 2018. We have relieved a portion, I think it's maybe a third of that one reserve already in the budget that we put. I don't want people at this last minute to be misled by an inaccurate comment, assertion. I think that you're next, Ms. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that we asked everybody to take this 3.64% cut, absolutely everyone. And I expect in 2018 that we're going to have offices and departments come back to us, probably to the Finance Committee, because that's where we're usually moving the money around, come back and say, I brought you a flat budget, and now I'm in the middle of the year, and here's something that I'm mandated to do or that you want me to do, like home monitoring, and I'm coming up short. So I'd like to fight for my program by coming to Finance Committee and asking that contingency money be used to fund this program or fund this thing that needs to be done. And I expect to have every representatives from many departments and certainly from offices coming and saying, here's what that 3.64% cut meant to me, meant to my office, meant to the taxpayers, meant to the citizens of Kane County. And now I'm asking you to restore some of those funds so that we can continue this program. And I expect that the Finance Committee will hear those and will listen to those arguments and will certainly side with the angels and make good choices. It's the cut is across the board, but there is this backdoor opportunity for contingency money to be spent on programs that are worth fighting for. So we'll fight for them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Chief Judge Bowles, I understand that you have stepped forward to the podium, and out of my deep, deep respect for you and for your position, I will recognize you to speak. But of all the places that it is inappropriate to be making last-minute negotiations, this is the wrong place to be doing that. However, when a chief judge of our entire county court system comes forward, she has my full attention.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to make a position here. I simply want to correct, with all due respect, Mr. Kozarik's statement with regard to what my position was when I originally took it. At no time did I say, this is what I want. When cuts were given to all of the department heads and said, 3.64 needs to come across the top, what I did was say, okay. And I wrote a letter to everyone and said, I can't advocate this and I can't honor this cut. But if the cut is going to be made, then I will abide by the decision of the board. And this is the only alternative we have as a non-mandated program through court services. So it's not something I want. I want to make sure that's very clear. But I think I made my statement to everyone in the letter and the impact analysis that was sent to everyone. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chief Judge. And just for the record, so that for the record, I won't recognize in final discussion among the board members at the board level anybody outside, and so I want to give you advance notice that the answer on that is going to be no. That once we go through the process and we come to this final meeting, this is for board members to discuss, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, but we have to have a process here or the negotiations will go forever and there will be no order to what we're doing. So I'm sorry if anybody's disappointed by that, but that will be my position in the future. I would ask you not to test whether I would actually say no or not, okay? So, Mr. Hoshite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add some perspective about the debate over this issue. Our Finance Committee was tasked with, as we have in the prior years, creating a balanced budget. This year was more difficult than prior years because of limited resources. We've made a commitment to come with a balanced budget. That's what we have before us today. There's a compelling argument, and by the way, the meetings that we had as a committee and subcommittee 10 to 12 meetings that some of the board members attended, others chose not to attend. And there were countless other meetings that we had with elected officials, the chief judge, the state's attorney, the circuit clerk, to attempt to come to a resolution. The budget as submitted today is not perfect, but it was our best attempt to live within our financial means. If we approve the amendment that's on the floor now, we would be approving it without a recurring revenue source, so we're going to have the same debate next year. And I think also, although I have the ultimate respect for the chief judge and her desire to maintain the resources that we've allocated to her in the past, we could let every elected official and every department head make their presentation this morning about the impact of the cuts on their departments, and I think many of those would be just as compelling as the issue that we're faced with today. I do think it's a little bit disingenuous to argue the public safety component here. We can argue, it's always difficult when you talk about public safety budgets, and what resources we have, but this county has shifted our resources over the past 20 years dramatically in favor of public safety. Just look at the court security system in and of itself. We didn't have court security way back when. We had bailiffs in the courtrooms. Now we have an entire bargaining unit with 30 to 40 employees that man our courthouses to make them safe. We've allocated, in my opinion, appropriately, but a significant amount of money to public safety. So to suggest that this is a slight on public safety, take a look at the resources we allocate there, and you'll see we're, as a percentage, as good as any other county. With respect to the concern about the elimination of the program and the impact on public safety, I think the courts and the judiciary will do a good job of determining which individuals on that program need to be incarcerated and which are able to be out. You may notice in the budget this year we've got $400,000 less in bond revenue. That's a permanent reduction because the judiciary and the courts have determined that requiring bond in certain cases is not necessary anymore. And so the trend is not to have people incarcerated, but I'm confident that if there are violent criminals who, or people who are charged with crimes that are awaiting trial that need to be incarcerated, that the court system will make sure that that gets done properly. So based on that background, I am going to vote against the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Thomas, then Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my first go-around with the budget, and it's difficult work. This is serious business, and we've been tasked with making some tough choices. And I'd like to thank my colleagues who have put in the time and the energy to get us here today. And I just want to be on record to express my concerns about process, and really just to ask that for next year, we perhaps reevaluate the process. I was not tapped to be on the Enhanced Finance and Budget Committee. I attended a handful of meetings. Unfortunately, we do have other responsibilities, and many of us were not able to make every single meeting. But I know that when our committee schedules are disseminated at the beginning of the year, we make arrangements to be at our committee meetings. And so I would suggest that perhaps we take a more maybe traditional approach next year and have each department go through their committee of jurisdiction with the budget presentation, so that we have broader representation and participation from the board. And I have a lot of concerns about this budget, but the solution or the alternative presented today may not be ideal, but I, like many others, have concerns about public safety and potential liability. And so for that reason, I thank my colleague, Ms. Barrero, for putting an alternative forward, and I will be supporting it today. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think most everybody here is aware of my previous life, where I spent 30 years as a police detective with the Cook County Sheriff's Police. One of the few shootings that I was involved in a situation very similar to what we're talking about here. And I'm here to tell you that electronic monitoring is no complete panacea. So things may happen whether they're on electronic monitoring or not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention that having gone through all of these meetings, the enhanced finance and the finance committee meetings, and coming up with the budget, I would like to thank the chief judge, all the elected officials, and the department heads for agreeing to cut their budgets 3.64%. No one wanted to do that. No one liked having to choose where to make their cuts, but they agreed to do that. And I don't think our job is to manage the departments and the elected officials' departments. I think our job is to balance our budget the best we can. So I feel that in this situation, this is the best alternative we could come up with. The other thing I'm concerned with is during the course of 2018, we have labor negotiations. We're going to have needs for additional vehicles, probably for the sheriff's department. There are going to be additional expenses that are going to come up that are not allocated for. We're going to have to come up with some money in those areas. So until we take a look at potential future emergencies financially with respect to payroll increases, benefit increases, or additional equipment needed by the sheriff's department, I don't think we should be taking money out of reserves now just to balance this budget or to improve one department that the chief judge graciously agreed to cut. So I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leonard. With that, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
This is for the amendment.
Yes.
Allen? Auger? Yes. Barrero?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Davist?
Yes.
Fraz?
No.
Gillum?
No.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hoshite?
No.
Ishmael?
Yes.
Kenyon?
No.
Kazarek?
No.
Leonard?
No.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
No.
Molina?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Sheffalo?
No.
Silva?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Sterrett? Sorry, Sterrett?
No.
And Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman?
No.
And Winicki?
No.
$13 nays. I count 13 nays. I have 13.
The motion fails, 13-11. Okay, let's see. Now we go back to the original motion that was made and seconded. Let's see, it was by Mr. Hoshite, seconded by Ms. Sterrett. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Allen?
Aye.
Auger?
Yes.
Barrero?
No.
Okay. Dahl? I'm sorry? Dahl? Okay. Davist?
No.
Fraz?
Yes.
Gillum?
Yes.
Hernandez?
No.
Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael?
No.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Sheffalo?
Yes.
Silva?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
No.
Wegman?
Yes.
Winicki?
Yes.
Okay. Passes. 16. Yep. Yep, 16.
The motion passes 16-8. Next on the, in this section is resolution number 17-313. Mr. Hoshite.
I'll move 17-313, which is the 2018 annual appropriations.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Sterrett. Any comments, questions? Not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Auger. Yes. Ferrero. Dahl. Davist.
Yes.
Franz. Yes. Gillum. Yes. Hernandez. Yes. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Yes. Molina. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Thomas. I'm sorry, Thomas? No. Wegman? Yes. Winnicki? Yes. Motion passes.
Motion passes. Number 17-315.
Or 314.
Excuse
this
me.
is the levy for the general fund. I'll move that.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Hoshite to pass number 17-314, second by Ms. Sterrett. Any comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Ferrero? Yes. Dahl? Davist?
Yes.
Franz?
Yes.
Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Winnicki?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Number 17-315.
I'll move this. This is the insurance liability fund levy.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Leonard. Thank you, Ms. Sterrett. Any comments, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Ferrero? Yes. Dahl? Yes. Davist?
Yes.
Franz? Yes. Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez? Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
And Winnicki?
Yes.
Motion passes.
A motion passes. Number 17-316. Mr. Hoshite.
I'll move this as the levy for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Leonard. Any thoughts or questions, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Auger, I'm sorry, Allen. Aye. Auger. Yes. Ferrero. Yes. Dahl. Yes. Davist.
Yes.
Franz. Gillum. Yes. Hernandez. Yes. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
And Winnicki.
Yes.
Motion
Okay,
passes.
motion passes. Number 17-317.
I'll move this. This is the levy for the Social Security Fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Allen. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Auger. Yes. Ferrero. Yes. Dahl.
Yes.
Davist.
Yes.
Franz.
Yes.
Gillum. Yes. Hernandez. Yes. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Yes. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
And Winnicki.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Number 17-318, Mr. Hoshite.
I'll move the levy for the County Highway Fund.
Second by Mr. Franz. Any thoughts, comments? Not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Auger. Yes. Ferrero. Yes. Dahl.
Yes.
Davist.
Yes.
Franz.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Sanchez. I'm sorry. Molina. It is, yes, okay. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
And Winnicki.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Number 17319.
I move the levy for the county bridge fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Fraz. Any comments, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Monicki.
Motion passes. Number 17320. Mr. Hoshite.
Move the levy for the county highway matching fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Fraz. Any comments, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Monicki.
Okay, motion passes. Number 17321.
I'll move the levy for the county health fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Starrett. Any thoughts, questions? Not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winicky. Passes.
Motion passes. Number 17322.
I'll move the levy for the Veterans Commission Fund.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Smith. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winicky.
Motion passes. Number 17323.
I'll move the levy for the Mill Creek Special Service Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Allen. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winicky.
Motion passes. Number 17324.
I'll move the levy for the Sunvale Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Starrett. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winicky.
Motion passes. Number 17325.
I'll move the levy for the Middle Creek Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Davist. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. Winnicki.
Motion passes. Number 17, 326.
I'll move the levy for the Shirewood Farm Special Service Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Starrett. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winnicki.
Motion passes. Number 17, 327.
I'll move the levy for the Ogden Gardens Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Allen. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Davis. I'm sorry, Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winnicki. Carries.
Motion passes. Number 17, 328.
I'll move the levy for Wildwood West Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Fraz. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. And Winnicki.
Motion passes. Number 17, 329.
I'll move the levy for the Cheval de Selle Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Fraz. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. Winnicki.
Motion passes. Number 17, 330.
I'll move the levy for Plank Road Estates Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Smith. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. I'm sorry. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. Winnicki. Passes.
Motion passes. Number 17, 331.
I'll move the levy for Exposition View Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Dahl. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davis. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon. Kazarek. Leonard. Lewis. Martin. Molina. Sanchez. Shefflo. Silva. Smith. Starrett. Thomas. Wegman. Winnicki.
Motion passes. Number 17, 332.
I'll move the levy for Pasadena Drive Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Starrett. Any thoughts, questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl. Davist. Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon? Yes. Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Starrett? Thomas? Wegman? Winnicki? Passes.
Motion passes. Number 17333.
I'll move the levy for Tamara Dittman Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Ms. Allen. Any questions, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Ferrero? Dahl? Davist?
Yes.
Franz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin? Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Starrett? Thomas? Wegman? And Winnicki?
Motion passes. Number 17334.
I'll move the levy for Crane Road Estates Special Billing Area.
So moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Davist. Any thoughts, questions? Not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Barrero? Dahl? Davist? Franz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon? Kazarek? Leonard? Lewis? Martin? Molina? Sanchez? Shefflo? Silva? Smith? Starrett? Thomas? Wegman? And Winnicki? Passes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. On resolutions, ordinances, on the consent agenda, would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, Ms. Allen?
Mr. Chairman, I ask that Resolution 17-342 be tabled and sent back to committee. That would be the Administration Committee.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Mr. Hoshite. Oh, and second by, well, let's see, let's identify them and then take them in order, or?
Oh, no. You just made a motion.
Oh, excuse me. So, okay, so a motion to table, number 17342, so moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Hoshite. Any thoughts, questions? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Auger? Barrero? No? Okay. Dahl? Davist? Franz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Starrett? Thomas? Wegman? And Winnicki?
Motion passes. 17342 will be sent back to the Administration Committee. Okay. Is there a motion? Let's see. Would anyone else like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I'll be removing 17-351.
Okay, number 17351. Okay, others? Mr. Sanchez? Number 17353. Are there others? Any others? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of 17351, 17353, and then we already had the action on 342. So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Leonard. Clerk will call the roll.
Ellen? Auger? Barrero? Dahl? Davist? Franz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite? Ishmael? Kenyon? Kazarek? Leonard? Lewis? Martin? Molina? Sanchez? Shefflo? Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman? Wodnicki? Passes.
Okay, motion passes. Number 17, 351, Ms. Molina, I believe someone else will need to move that. Do I assume correctly? Okay. If someone will move that in second, so moved by Mr. Hoshite, second by Mr. Dahl. Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Chairman. Earlier in the year, we had made an amendment to our financial policy, and part of the amendment read, employees traveling locally on county business will not be reimbursed for meal cost. Here we find ourselves with limited resources, and I think we should lead by example, and I will not be voting for incidentals by our elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Molina. Any other thoughts, comments? We have a motion and a second. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Yes. Barrero? No. Dahl? Yes. I'm sorry. Yes? Okay. Davist?
No.
Fraz?
Yes.
Gillum? Yes. Hernandez?
No.
Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael?
No.
Kenyon? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Lewis?
Yes.
Okay. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman? Wodnicki?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Number 17, 353. I believe that we'll have a motion and a second. So moved by Mr. Frost, second by Ms. Allen. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep my comments brief. Just in my continuing crusade against the Long Meadow Parkway project, I'm attempting to vote no on this once more. I would just like to say that for all of the traffic and the people coming our way in northern Kane County, I don't see a lot of discussion about what we're going to do about that besides Long Meadow. I'm sure there's been some discussions about that, but I would like to see more going forward about what we're going to do about the suburban sprawl problem. As I've said before, Long Meadow is kind of a Band-Aid on an open wound, and while it may reduce traffic in the amounts that is stated, it's still not going to be enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Any other comments? Mr. Fraz.
Well, I guess first of all, I'd say Long Meadow is the perfect answer to suburban sprawl, but on this particular issue, this is a ranch house. It's located on Route 31, essentially surrounded by the Bruner property. You would think maybe it was part of it, but it's not. It's like an outlot. These houses have been unheated and unoccupied for years. Plumbing is burst, paint's peeling. Regardless of how you feel about Long Meadow, it's a safety concern. It should come down.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Auger?
Yes.
Barrero?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Davist?
Yes.
Fraz?
Yes.
Gillum?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Sanchez?
No.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Wegman?
Yes.
Wodnicki? Passes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Yes, and I apologize.
Ms. Sterrett.
I should have been where I didn't agree with my first and second on that. I just want to make sure we get.
Fraz and Allen.
President. Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 17271, authorizing an agreement between Kane County and Food Hub operator PKE Enterprises. This was tabled at the last county board meeting to revise the memorandum of understanding, and that's now in place. So may I have a motion? So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Smith. Any thoughts, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Barrero? Dahl? Davist? Fraz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard? Lewis?
Yes.
Martin? Molina? Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo? Yes. Silva? Yes. Smith? Yes. Sterrett? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Wegman? Yes. And Winicky? Yes. Yeses.
Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda, zoning petitions. I'd like to ask Development Committee Chairman Kurt Kozarek to rise, discuss, and make a motion to approve each of the zoning petitions on today's agenda. Mr. Kozarek.
Chairman, the first petition, 4430, is located in Blackberry Township. The petitioner is looking for an interim special use request for 2 years for an existing residential site work business. There is one objector who we've heard from earlier today. The recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals is for approval. Development Committee voted for approval. And I'll make the motion to approve today.
So moved by Mr. Kozarek, second by Ms. Allen. Any thoughts, comments? Ms. Wonicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say this came before the Village of Campton Hills because it's within a 1.5 mile jurisdiction, and it was unanimously approved. They're in favor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wonicky. Mr. Sanchez?
I just wanted to say that I did reach out to the organization opposing the petitioner, and neither that organization nor the petitioner could find another example where somebody was denied this kind of special use. Because I know on one hand, some people are saying it's sort of an issue of favoritism, and in which case I'm completely against that. But I don't see any evidence of that personally. I didn't find anything from my correspondences with the organization or with the petitioner. So I just wanted that to be known. If anybody wants copies of that, I'll furnish them with that. But thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Any other thoughts, comments?
To close, the petitioner is, in reference to that, the petitioner is Andrew and Gail Fraz Trust. That is Mr. Fraz, who is, should be noted that he's excused himself from this vote, and I believe he's sitting in the audience right now. To the comment from the objector, they had asked for a 2-year extension. That's exactly what Mr. Fraz is requesting as well, for the exit strategy of moving the business off-site.
Thank you, Mr. Kozarek. The clerk will call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Barrero? No. All right, Dahl? No. Davis?
Yes.
Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? No. Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael? No. Kenyon?
Yes.
Kozarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Sterrett?
Yes.
Thomas? Wegman?
No.
Winicky?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Petition 4429, Mr. Kozarek.
Thank you. Petition 4429 is located in Blackberry Township. Petitioner George and Gloria Lindstrom Trust. They are proposing rezoning from an F district farming to an E1 district estate residential. No objectors to this petition. The recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals is for approval. The Development Committee also voted to recommend approval. I'll make the motion to approve today.
So moved by Mr. Kozarek, second by Mr. Dahl. Any thoughts, comments? Mr. Fraz?
Yeah, I'm speaking as the hosting board member, but I'm also a direct neighbor to this property, so very familiar with it. As you may know, Brundage Road is one of our rustic roads in Kane County, one of only 4 or 5. The petitioner is asking for 2 5-acre farmettes, which are very much in keeping with the farmette-type atmosphere in the area. When development was originally proposed across the street, this could have become something much more high density. So I am aware that all the neighbors support this, and I support it as a board member and a neighbor also, and feel that it is fitting of the current uses of the area.
Thank you, Mr. Fraz. Other thoughts, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Barrero? Yes. Dahl? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Fraz?
Yes.
Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite?
Yes.
Ishmael?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Kozarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Smith? Yes. Sterrett. Yes. Thomas. Yes. Wegman. Yes. Winicki. Yes. Passes.
Okay, petition 4431, Mr. Kozarek.
The final petition of the day is petition 4431, located in Dundee Township, Elgin Township, and Rutland Township. Petitioner 3 Fires Council Incorporated, Boy Scouts of America, is proposing a special use for a Scout Youth Camp and Training Center. There were no objectors. The Zoning Board of Appeals voted to recommend approval. The Development Committee voted to recommend approval. And being that this is in my district, I'm honored to make the recommendation today.
So moved by Mr. Kozarek, second by Mr. Smith. Okay, so second by Mr. Smith. Ms. Sterrett would like to third it. So any thoughts, comments? Mr. Shefflow, please rise.
Thank you. I'm just wondering what is going on here. It's been a Boy Scout camp for 100 years or so. Are they changing use, or is this just cleanup?
Let's see. Mr. Van Kerkhoff, can you answer that?
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. Yeah, recognized that the Boy Scout camp has been in existence for a long time. Sometime after their establishment of the camp, the county board amended the zoning ordinance to make recreation camps a special use in the F district. They came into us with a very proactive and ambitious plan to improve the site and add additional facilities, and that type of improvement as an existing non-conforming use requires that they bring the property up to conformance with the zoning ordinance, and thus the request for a special use.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer that? Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Barrero? Yes. Dahl? Yes. Davist? Yes. Fraz? Yes. Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite? Yes. Ishmael? Yes. Kenyon? Yes. Kozarek? Yes. Leonard? Yes. Lewis? Yes. Martin? Yes. Molina? Yes. Sanchez? Yes. Shefflow? Yes. Silva? Yes. Smith? Yes. Sterrett? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Wegman? Yes. And Winicki? Yes.
Motion passes. Next, appointments. May I have a motion and a second to approve the appointments to the Grand Prairie Sanitary District? Motion's made by Mr. Fraz, second by Ms. Allen. Any thoughts, questions? Mr. Fraz.
Yeah, I worked with Jody Welnick and Ken Anderson on this. The Grand Prairie Sanitary District, if you go way back, Grand Prairie was the original name of the proposed community in the LaFox area. It eventually was approved at one time under the name Settlements of LaFox. So there is an established district there. Up until recently, the Forest Preserve actually bought a parcel that had 4 houses on it. Those were vacated and are being torn down. So as of right now, there's no residents that live on this essentially farmland. So checked, the owner checked, and if there is no residents that live on the land, the owner is allowed to bring forth a board recommendations that do not live on the property. And the people that you see on the list today are principals or associated with the ownership of the property. Some background.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frost. Any other questions, comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Sure. Barrero? Yes. Dahl? Sorry, Dahl? Yes. Thank you. Davist? Yes. Fraz? Yes. Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hoshite? Yes. Ishmael? Yes. Kenyon? Yes. Kozarek? Yes. Leonard? Yes. Lewis? Yes. Martin? Yes. Molina? Yes. Sanchez? Yes. Shefflow? Yes. Silva? Yes. Smith? Yes. Sterrett? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Wegman? Yes. Winicki? Yes. Passes.
Okay, motion passes. May I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss personnel settlement of claims pending potential litigation? So moved by Mr. Dahl, second by Ms. Sterrett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Please call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Barrero? Dahl? Davist? Dear Fraz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite? Ishmael? Kenyon. Yes. Kozarik.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Yes. Molina. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Smith. Here, Starrett.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wegman.
Yes.
Winicki. Passes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next on may I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 17359, authorizing the engagement of counsel for purposes of pursuing claims against opioid manufacturers. So moved by Mr. Dahl, second by Ms. Starrett. Any discussion? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero. Dahl.
Yes.
Fraz. Gillum. Hernandez. It's not here. Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Not here. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kozarik.
Yes.
Leonard. Okay. Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith is not here. Starrett.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wegman. Yes. Winicki. It's not here.
Okay, motion passes. Finally, I misspoke. Rather than two, we have three speakers on non-agenda items. Again, as just a matter of protocol, individuals who have registered to speak on non-agenda items prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning are allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Total public comment time for items not listed on the agenda is limited to 15 minutes. Naturally, speakers are asked to refrain from statements or comments or conduct that is otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the county board or which causes a disturbance. So first, let's see, Mr. Degan, are you? Is the 3 minutes sufficient?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Ramin Dagon. I go by Ray. First name spelled R-A-U, M like Mary, I-N like Nancy. Last name Dagon, D like David, E-H-G-H-A-N like Nancy. I reside at the Transitional Living Facility at 1305 East Indian Trail in Aurora, Illinois. It's managed by the Association for Individual Development. The September 2017 Kane County Board minutes do not include the following critical statements I made during the public comment for non-agenda items at the September 2017 Kane County Board meeting. One was in the September 2017 County Board meeting, I stated that two of my doctors who both have MD degrees have provided me with two signed statements declaring that the toxic mold inside my apartment and transitional living facility was causing devastation to my mental and physical health. These items do not appear in the same September 2017 Kane County Board minutes. In the same September Kane County Board meeting, I mentioned that two of my doctors who both have MD degrees have signed two different statements declaring that I need to acquire housing that is safe from toxic mold. These items do not appear in the same September County Board minutes. And at the same September Kane County Board meeting, I stated that one of my MDs wrote a letter that I immediately need to acquire housing safe from toxic mold. These items do not appear in the same September County Board minutes. My position at the 2017 September Kane County Board meeting remains the same. I direly and immediately need housing safe from toxic mold. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Degan. Next, I believe, is Shelley Carnes. Ms. Carnes.
Hi, my name is Shelley, and I'm Ray Dagon's girlfriend, and I wanted just to take a minute to talk about what a great public servant and character that Ray Dagon is. He has been a public servant in Kane County for a long time as a librarian, and loves to help people. His uncle was awarded a Purple Heart for his brave and courageous character, and I sometimes think of Ray that way. He is fearless when it comes to being an advocate for those that are disabled and those that have multiple chemical sensitivity. And a lot of people don't understand what multiple chemical sensitivity is. And I'd like everyone in this room to try to imagine what it would be like to have a brain that doesn't work and feels like it's on fire because of adverse toxins such as mold, which is Ray is facing every day into our apartment. The adverse reactions make his brain feel like he's on fire. And actually, what he would just like, we would like, is for him just to be moved out of the housing so that he could have a better place, so that he could give more to the Kane County as a public servant. That's his dream, is to be able to give all that he can for people and to help people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carnes. Finally, I believe that we have Ms. Amy Becker, who's here to discuss Kane County Forest Preserve parking ticket dispute policy.
I know that a lot of you were here this morning when I spoke to at the Forest Preserve meeting. I had originally signed up to speak at this meeting, and I was asked when I received a call from Ms. Duffy if I would sign up to speak at the earlier meeting also, and I did. We didn't come to any resolution, and I'll explain that. But basically, for those who weren't here, on September 30th, I brought my daughter to the Fabian West Forest Preserve for homecoming pictures for a great day. It was very crowded there that day. There were several high schools having homecoming, and I parked safely, parallel parked with other cars along between the grass and the road. We came out within an hour. We had parking tickets. I went in to see the chief, the director of public safety, Jalafo, on 2 days later on Monday morning, and I was told, I showed him pictures that there were no parking signs anywhere in the area at all, and I asked him to dismiss the ticket. He would not dismiss the ticket because he said he would have to do that for everybody else. I asked him what my recourse was if I felt that the ticket wasn't justified, and he asked if I wanted a court date. My husband is a former police officer, and they have a municipal court, traffic court, and I said that was fine. He said not to pay the ticket, and I waited for my court date. 19 days later, I had my court date, waited in court, and I was brought into an office by an attorney. I was told, with no introductions, that I have two options. I can plead guilty and pay $350, or I can set a trial date. Obviously, I was scared at the moment because trial seems like a big word to most people, and I asked her why also I would have to pay $350 for a ticket that now was only 19 days old, and she said because I hadn't paid it. I explained that I was told not to pay the ticket before the court date, and she in turn brought me before the judge, Judge Johnson, who then I tried to explain what was going on and my confusion with the situation, and he said, I don't have time to debate your side of the story. He said, do you want a bench trial or do you want a jury trial? And at that point, I was just scared. My husband asked if we could just pay the ticket, and he leaned over and he laughed at us, and he said no. I wish I could tell everyone how I felt at that moment, how upset and sick to my stomach I was. I left feeling like a criminal walking out of the court because of a parking ticket. And by the way, parking tickets are non-court violations through Kane County. I did go ahead and I contacted Teresa Barrero, who is my representative. She did go ahead and speak to Monica Myers. I was told that there was nothing they could do. I also wrote a letter outlining the details of the entire thing to Mike Kenyon as president of the Forest Preserve, and I did not receive any response, so which is why I'm here today. I was asked after the Forest Preserve meeting to speak to Monica Myers. There was an attorney out there and Chief Jalafo. There was no resolution. I was just told by the attorney that it's a local ordinance, that it's my fault, and I can go to trial, and if I win, I won't have to pay anything. And I said, the toll that it takes on you, and the amount of time that I would have to spend, and not knowing how much it's going to cost me to do that, is ridiculous. And I asked Chief Jalafo, I said, if you would have just told me when you asked me if I wanted a court date, if you would have explained to me how going to court in Kane County for a Forest Preserve parking ticket could have led me into $350 the moment I walked in the door, I probably would have reconsidered and just paid the ticket. He comes from Aurora Police Department. They have administrative hearings for parking tickets every Friday. My husband came from Lansing, Illinois Police Department. They do the same thing. He told me that it wasn't his responsibility to tell me what my rights were, and that was after this first meeting today. I just feel, as a citizen, I just feel so overwhelmed by a situation for such a simple thing that seems to get out of hand the minute you walk in around attorneys and whatever else. I don't know, but that's basically what happened. After the meeting, you asked me to come to the one, and I did, so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no other speakers on non-agenda items, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Starrett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it.